On the night of December 25, 1776, George Washington stood on the frozen bank of the Delaware River. Behind him, an army that was starving. Ahead of him, a river choking on ice. He had less than a year left to save the revolution. Most of his men's enlistments expired in 6 days. If this crossing failed tonight, there might not be an army left to try again tomorrow. His plan called for 2,400 men to cross the Delaware in complete darkness, march 9 miles through a blizzard, and strike a Hessian garrison at dawn. The crossing was supposed to take 4 hours. It would take 9, and the storm rolling in behind it was strong enough to have stopped the entire operation before it began. By late 1776, the American cause was dying. New York had fallen. New Jersey had fallen. Congress had fled Philadelphia, expecting the city to be next. General William Howe's army held the field almost everywhere that mattered, well-fed, well-supplied, and confident the rebellion was already finished. Washington's army was the opposite of all of it. Barefoot men wrapped rags around their feet in the snow. Rations had run out days earlier. Desertion was no longer rare, it was routine. Thomas Paine, marching with the retreating army, had written words that captured exactly what this moment felt like. He described the times as testing the soul of every patriot, and he wasn't exaggerating for effect. He was describing what he saw around him every single day. Washington needed something Congress could not give him, and the enemy could not predict. He needed a victory. George Washington, Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, was 44 years old that winter. He had spent the first year and a half of the war absorbing defeat after defeat, and learning something most commanders never learn in time. He understood that this war would not be won by matching the British in open battle. It would be won by outlasting them. That insight, patience over pride, was the hinge the entire war would eventually turn on. But patience alone would not save Christmas week 1776. For that, Washington needed to become someone he rarely allowed himself to be: reckless. Across the river, the Hessian commander at Trenton, Colonel Johann Rall, held the opposite opinion of the war entirely. Rall was a veteran of European battlefields, decorated, aggressive, and utterly dismissive of the American army in front of him. He reportedly waved off warnings of an attack, calling the idea beneath serious consideration. He believed the river itself was doing his job for him. The plan Washington approved was dangerously complex. 3 separate columns would cross the Delaware at 3 different points and converge on Trenton at the same hour before sunrise. Picture the river that night, a half-mile wide, choked with ice floes the size of wagons, moving fast in the current. Washington's main column would cross at McConkey's Ferry, 9 miles upriver from Trenton, using Durham boats, sturdy, high-sided cargo vessels normally built to haul iron ore. Colonel John Glover's Marblehead Regiment, watermen from Massachusetts who had already saved the army once during the retreat from Long Island, would man the oars. Downriver, 2 more crossings were planned, one to block the road south, one to seal off the escape route. On paper, it was elegant. In practice, the storm had other plans. The crossing was supposed to begin at sunset and finish by midnight. Instead, as the first boats pushed off McConkey's Ferry, the temperature dropped hard and the sky opened. Sleet turned to snow. Snow turned to a driving nor'easter. Men held their muskets under their coats to keep the powder dry. Ice chunks slammed against the Durham boats hard enough to be heard over the wind. Loading 2,400 men, their horses, and 18 pieces of artillery took hours longer than planned. The 2 downriver crossings, blocked by the same ice, the same storm, never made it across at all. Washington's plan had called for 3 columns. He was now down to 1. The attack was supposed to begin at 5 a.m. under cover of darkness. The last boat did not reach the New Jersey shore until nearly 4 a.m. Washington now faced a decision that could end the war before it truly began: turn back and lose the army to expiring enlistments within the week, or push forward 9 miles through a blizzard in broad daylight with half his intended force. He chose to march. Along the road, 2 soldiers froze to death before a single shot was fired. And yet, The storm that had nearly destroyed the mission became the reason it worked. The same blizzard that delayed Washington's crossing had convinced Colonel Rall that no army could possibly attack in this weather. His outer pickets were thin, his men were inside, sheltering from the cold. Pay attention to what happens next. It decides everything. At around 8 in the morning, Washington's exhausted column emerged from the tree line above Trenton and opened fire. The Hessians scrambled to form ranks in the streets, but Washington had already split his force to cut off their retreat in 2 directions. Rall attempted to rally his men in an orchard at the edge of town. He was shot from his horse within minutes, mortally wounded. Without him, the defense collapsed. In under 2 hours, it was over. 22 Hessians killed, roughly 90 wounded, nearly 900 captured. Washington's own losses that morning: 2 men, the 2 who had frozen on the march in. News of Trenton spread through the colonies within days, and its effect was immediate. Enlistments that had been expiring by the hundreds suddenly reversed. Men who had planned to go home stayed. Congress, which had all but written off the war days earlier, found new confidence to keep fighting. Historians have long compared Washington's strategy that winter to Fabius Maximus, the Roman general who understood that surviving an enemy could matter more than beating him outright. But Fabius never had to cross a river of ice at midnight to prove it. Consider the counterfactual for a moment. If the storm had arrived 1 hour earlier, the crossing might never have left the Pennsylvania shore at all. No Trenton, no momentum, quite possibly no Continental Army left by January. Today, McConkey's Ferry sits quietly along the Delaware, a small stretch of riverbank in a state park, easy to walk past without a second look. But on one night in December of 1776, a storm nearly ended a revolution before it staged one of its greatest victories. The 2 things, the storm and the triumph, were never separate. They were the same night. If you want more forgotten turning points like this one, subscribe to Bastion History. There's another one waiting.